Civil rights pioneer Carlotta Walls Lanier is a testament to the power of education in the pursuit of personal and collective goals. At 14 years old, Lanier was the youngest member of the Little Rock Nine. They were the leaders in the desegregation of public schools, a turning point in the fight against racial oppression in America. In the mid-1950s, Lanier was excelling in her classes at her all-black junior high school. Her teachers did their best to prepare students for success, employing unconventional methods to counter poor conditions. However, Lanier was not reaching her full academic potential. So she volunteered to become one of the first 9 black students to attend Little Rock Central High School. In September 1957, Lanier and her classmates faced a mob of angry white segregationists and were turned away by armed Arkansas National Guardsmen under orders from Governor Orville Faubus. Lanier and the other students were instructed to stay home, where they were given coursework and tutored by a group of college professors. The students made another attempt to enter the high school, but ended up hiding under blankets in the back seat of a car to avoid the white mob's anger. The next day, President Dwight D. Eisenhower deposed the governor's power over the Arkansas National Guard, deploying the 101st Airborne Division to escort the students into the school.
To have 1,200 troopers to fly in, roll in, and drive in from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, just told me how special we were.
Lanier excelled during the first year at Central, despite hostility from some white classmates. But before she could begin her second year, the schools were closed.
The governor closed all the schools. 3,600 kids in Little Rock, Arkansas, black or white, didn't have a high school to go to. I was determined to finish my 11th grade year.
So Lanier took correspondence courses from the University of Arkansas and went to summer school classes in Chicago, Cleveland, and St. Louis to finish the 11th grade. The period known as the Lost Year ended with a declaration from a federal district court reopening schools. When Lanier returned to classes, her family's home was bombed.
The bombing took place February 9, 1960, and I was determined not to allow them to feel like they had won. I was determined to finish high school, graduate in May of 1960, and I saw a quote that was in a newspaper just recently that I said, I will continue or die trying.
And finish she did, becoming the first black woman to graduate from Central High, a triumph for not only herself, but for millions of students after her. However, even with increased diversity in classrooms today, the U.S. is facing an educational crisis with a widening opportunity gap for at-risk students. Lanier is confident that the collective efforts of young people will have a tremendous impact on the future of education, applauding the compassion and passion for justice shown by the courageous survivors of the Parkland High School shooting.
I truly feel that there is more work to be done. 333 years of living a certain way in this country prior to 1954 Brown versus Board of Education, and this short period of time since then, we have accomplished a great deal. And I feel that we must be vigilant to keep those laws, that progress viable, and to make sure that we do not go backwards, even if it means just staying the same. We need to do that at this point in time. It is so very important that we vote for leaders to take us in the right direction.
On June 9, 1993, Ollie Marie Faison received a devastating phone call that would change her life. Her 6-year-old son, Broderick Bell Jr., had been wounded by a drive-by shooting. The incident galvanized Denver during a surge of gang activity, and Broderick's image was used as the face of the notorious Summer of Violence, a time marked by the senseless killing and injury of dozens of innocent people. Faison's Summer of Violence began on May 15, 1993, when her father, Oliver, disappeared without a trace. Then, Faison's oldest daughter, Anika, was targeted and threatened by a group of girls from a dangerous street gang. On June 9th, Anika was driving home with her siblings after their first day of summer camp when she pulled over to greet a friend. Suddenly, 3 carloads of teenage girls sped down the street, shooting indiscriminately at houses on both sides. Realizing that they were caught in the middle of the gunfire, Faison's children ducked down. But curious Broderick peeked up and was struck in the forehead by a 9mm bullet. Faison's daughter frantically delivered the news of her brother's injury to her mother on the phone. At the hospital, the surgeon told Faison that he'd removed the swelling and fragments from Broderick's brain, but could not remove the bullet. Her son was on life support, and the prognosis was bleak.
When I went into the room and I seen what Broderick looked like, he didn't look like the picture that they were showing on TV. So that's when I asked the cameras to come in to let the gang members see what I saw, what they did to me.
The images of 6-year-old Broderick on life support evoked a national response. From Denver Mayor Wellington Webb and the Denver Police Department to Governor Roy Romer and the state legislature, action was fast. Law enforcement activities went into overtime, and strict crime laws were passed. Over 300 juveniles were arrested for gun crimes that year. Broderick survived the shooting, but Faison lives with the trauma and emotional scars from that time of tribulation. The search for her father had been put on hold as the family awaited Broderick's recovery. But 2 years later, her father's body was found buried in a shallow grave. Soon after, Faison's oldest daughter revealed that she had been abused by her stepfather for years, sending Faison into depression, cured only by forgiveness.
If it wasn't for God and the power of me knowing the Lord, I would be devastated with the things that happened in my life. So the first thing that I've learned on healing is forgiveness. You gotta forgive these people, and we have to pray a hedge of protection around our family and children.
After using her platform to call for gun control, death threats forced Faison out of the neighborhood where she grew up. She now questions the effectiveness of the laws, which she likens to putting a Band-Aid on a major wound, but remains hopeful that lawmakers will find plausible solutions for the gun control crisis amid worsening conditions.
Well, they're building more institutions, and to me that's the wrong answer. We need to pray for a mind of wisdom to elect the right people, to make changes, what we need to do with our youth. But incarcerating them is just putting a Band-Aid on a wound, and they're coming out worse than they went in there.
Though she no longer advocates for political issues, Faison is an active supporter of organizations that help at-risk women. She shares her courageous testimony with the survivors of violent crimes and how she has triumphed over darkness. Meanwhile, she urges community members to do their part in protecting the community.
When people go to war, they come back, they need counseling. Well, we're having so much mass shootings, and you're not thinking about the people who were there, and they're walking among us wounded. And so you have loud sounds, you're not the same. You're not the same raising your kids anymore, because now you want to protect them because you're scared for them to go to a movie theater. You're scared for them to go to a concert. People don't realize we're doing memorials for people who passed, but you got these survivors around that they're not acknowledging. We got a lot of wounded people that needs to heal some type of way.
The first thing you notice about Rhonda Jackson is her radiant smile and a beautiful sense of style. However, hidden beneath her gentle exterior is unpredictable pain and exhaustion. After years of working as a corporate professional and exploring her passion for theater as an actress, Jackson experienced a life-changing health crisis. Lupus, a systemic autoimmune disorder that causes the body's immune system to attack its own tissues and organs, robbed Jackson of her strength, mobility, and the independence that she'd worked so hard to achieve. In the early 1990s, Jackson began to experience unusual feelings of exhaustion. Her doctor thought she had the flu, but the discomfort persisted. In the next weeks, still feeling ill, she returned to the doctor and was diagnosed with viral pneumonia before tragically suffering a miscarriage. Her doctor began to have suspicions of more serious health conditions and sent her to a rheumatologist who confirmed the diagnosis.
She took me in her office and she said, "I want to talk to you about your health." And she said, "I think you have lupus." And not knowing what that meant, I knew what lupus was, but I didn't know what it meant for my future. And that was my first, I guess, awakening that I would never be cured, basically. That it's an autoimmune disease for which there is no cure.
In fact, it can be debilitating. The symptoms of lupus include fatigue, fever, joint pain, shortness of breath, and a telltale butterfly-shaped rash on the face or rashes everywhere on the body. Known as the cruel mystery and the great imitator, it mimics several other illnesses, and no two cases are the same, so diagnosis can take several years. Many lupus patients are unable to work full-time due to complications of the unpredictable illness, resulting in health disparities and inadequate insurance coverage.
It's been a 360, this change in my life, which I had never anticipated. I had never thought that at this juncture in my life that there would be so many physical limitations. And I've had to learn how to make the physical accommodations, like it dictates everything. It dictates what I wear, it dictates what I eat, it dictates where I go, it dictates my entire lifestyle.
The disease intensified for Jackson in 2010 during a particularly stressful time at work. During her worsening health crisis, Jackson's employer went out of business. She lost her health benefits and was faced with outrageous medical expenses. She attempted to find work, but with a low energy level in interviews, she didn't receive a single job offer. Jackson applied for disability benefits and received financial assistance from the Lupus Foundation in Colorado. With the financial strain reduced, she was still physically and emotionally overwhelmed.
I'm depleted, I'm drained, I'm exhausted, but that doesn't keep me from having, a positive attitude. And I think when you have a chronic illness, sometimes it's so miserable that it becomes, there's some self-deprecation that goes along with that. It's like, are you kidding me? So you just have to laugh at it.
Today, Jackson is courageous in her efforts to lead life more on her terms and is an advocate for health equity, spreading awareness about the effects of the disease and bringing attention to its global socioeconomic impact. To increase understanding and support for people living with the chronic disease, Jackson penned a stage play titled Crying Wolf, Stories of the Lupus Warriors, which presents several perspectives on what life with lupus is really like. As Community Outreach and Education Coordinator of the Lupus Foundation of Colorado, she urges family members and friends of lupus patients to learn more about the disorder and respect the limitations it creates. In addition to making financial contributions to support lupus research, she suggests that people consider the severity of the disease with patience and compassion.
Every day is a challenge for me. I have more bad days than I do good. And the irony of that is that most days I look like I feel fine, but I don't. I don't feel fine. And accepting that was really, really hard for me, because my mind still feels like I can do all the things that I used to do, but my body is not so cooperative sometimes.
Colorado Senator Rhonda Fields became an agent of change in her community after suffering the worst tribulation a mother can face. Her son, Javad Marshall Fields, was murdered just after graduating from Colorado State University and as he was planning to be married.
He had big dreams and a brilliant smile, and he was going to go on to the university, George Washington University. He wanted to be a lobbyist. So we were really excited because as a mom, a single parent, to have a black male son graduate within 4 years. Some kids take 5 years to get their degree. He completed his degree in 4 years. So we were so very proud and so happy of his accomplishments.
On July 4th, 2004, Javad had witnessed the murder of a close friend at a community party in Aurora. Cooperating fully with investigators, Javad identified the shooters, Sir Mario Owens and Robert Ray, and the driver who aided them. Owens fled the state, while Ray was arrested as an accessory but released on bail after just 1 week in custody. Arapahoe County prosecutors filed a motion to seal the addresses of Javad and other witnesses, but 6 months passed before the motion was considered. None of the witnesses were offered state-funded witness protection services, and with no safety provisions in place, witness information was released to an associate of the gunman. A plan to eliminate the testimony of the case's key witnesses was orchestrated, and on June 20th, 2005, 4 days before Javad was set to testify against them, he and his fiancée, Vivian Wolf, were murdered.
I can tell you it was one of the darkest moments in my life. I did not want to breathe. I did not want to sleep. I found myself in deep depression, crying, and just feeling really paralyzed. And the only thing that really got me through, I believe, was my faith. It was my faith. It was the prayers of the community. They lifted me up. They wouldn't allow me to stay in this dark place.
In response to the community's outrage, investigators worked quickly to arrest the men. Both were found guilty of first-degree murder, sentenced to death, and are currently awaiting execution. Field's testimony was instrumental in solving the cases. She sat through 5 trials with quiet strength and courage, empowered by the people closest to her.
My son died because he had confidence in our criminal justice system. And after he was murdered, I looked around. I didn't see any leadership. I didn't see any leadership as it relates to those that are in the Senate or in the House or in the DA's office or those who are responsible for policing. So I had to exercise leadership to make sure that that murder was solved. So that's what got me involved. I had no other choice because as a mom, first of all, we never want to bury our children. And I had to have resolution. And they had to go out and find out who did this horrible thing.
In 2007, Fields was appointed to the Colorado Commission on Criminal Juvenile Justice. She worked on public safety and criminal justice bills and testified before the Colorado legislature on bills that would improve safety and protection for witnesses. Terrence Carroll, who was her state House representative, as well as the Speaker of the House at the time, asked Fields to run for the Colorado House of Representatives. After much consultation with her family, church, and community, she ran and was elected in 2010. She was re-elected to the House in 2012 and 2014 and elected to the Colorado Senate in 2016.
If it wasn't for someone tapping me on my shoulder, identifying me as a resource, as someone that they felt like could run for office, I don't know if I would be here. But now that I am here, I'm glad that I'm at the table, that I can lend voice to some of the issues that are important to my community.
Among her top priorities, Fields has worked to improve job opportunity, economic development, education, and of course, public safety. For her, public safety has to include common-sense gun reform measures. She is also seeking resolutions to the school-to-prison pipeline, where many kids of color are ticketed at school, sometimes just for horseplay, and can't get out of the system. Those pathways to prison must be closed, allowing every child to have a fresh, safe start so they can thrive. To triumph in these goals, everyone must get involved.
We have to get off the sidelines and we have to roll up our sleeves and we have to get involved in the political arena because who governs matters. And so basically what that means is we need to make sure that we're exercising our right to vote. We need to make sure that our cousins, our aunties, our neighbors, our friends, everyone that we know, we need to make sure that they're registered to vote and that we put in office those people who are going to represent our values, our principles, and the things that are important to us.
Elder abuse and neglect affect 1 out of 6 adults over the age of 60. Healthcare professionals and human rights activists are scrambling to prevent this mistreatment of this vulnerable population. But abuse rates are expected to increase as the rapidly aging global population more than doubles from 900 million in 2015 to approximately 2 billion in 2050. Denver Urban Spectrum publisher Rosalind B. Harris is all too familiar with the devastating effects of elder abuse. In 2008, Harris lost her 80-year-old mother, Ruth Boyd, in a tragic incident. In her soon-to-be-released memoir, The Story of Ruth, Harris tells her mother's story, starting with her Southern upbringing and later her devotion to her family.
My relationship with my mom was very close. Many people, everyone said that I looked more like her than anyone else. She was spread thin between all of her 6 children, and she tried to support all of us. We all had different lifestyles and different occupations, but she made it a big effort to come to Denver for our events. She always made an effort to support her children.
On November 3, 2008, Harris spent the evening at a Democratic campaign rally in Denver, where First Lady Michelle Obama urged people to vote for her husband, Democratic presidential candidate Barack Obama. At the end of the evening, Harris received a barrage of phone calls that interrupted her excitement and turned her life upside down. One night before Obama was elected president of the United States, Harris learned that her mother had been violently killed in her Grand Rapids, Michigan home.
Boy, you know, that was such a bittersweet time. I mean, we had talked about the election. She was excited about President Barack Obama. She had put in her vote. She had mailed in her ballot, so she knew, he was going to be the president. But it was so bittersweet because the very next day I was at Shadow Theater. My son was doing the catering for Jeffrey Nicholson at the theater, and everyone was excited about that, but my heart was so heavy, and people didn't realize what was going on. And it's not a time to rain on other people's parade, so I enjoyed the moment, of having Barack Obama become our president.
A criminal investigation into the circumstances surrounding Boyd's death revealed classic signs of elder abuse. The American Psychological Association defines elder abuse as the infliction of physical, emotional, sexual, or financial harm on an older adult and includes neglect. Elder abuse occurs when the vulnerabilities associated with aging are exploited. Aging is accompanied by numerous physical challenges, including decreased strength and agility, poor coordination, and memory loss. Additionally, several emotional changes increase susceptibility and the risk of abuse. The American Association of Retired Persons estimates that 51% of people over the age of 75 are living alone. Loneliness has a significant impact on health, increasing the risk of obesity, stress, depression, and dementia, with effects on the body comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Abuse and neglect are not easily detected, but caregivers and family members should watch for signs and behaviors that may signal a problem.
I think that people need to look at signs, ask questions. They need to watch, they need to hear, they need to listen to see what the elders are. And it wouldn't hurt to go over there and visit with them. Sit down and have some dinner and maybe take them to a movie, maybe take them to get their hair done. And people, especially if you're related to them. But even if you're not related to them, if you know a senior, I know a lot of seniors in my life that I think about them and I should call them. I need to call them just to check in and check up on them and see if they're okay.
Harris still struggles to cope with the heartbreaking loss of her mother, but attributes her positive attitude and ability to endure to the support of friends and family. The process of learning about her mother's life while researching and writing the memoir was also healing.
She did not have to leave this earth. And it was sad, of course, because she was my mother. You know, she brought me into this world. She taught me everything that I, learned. And it was very painful because it really kind of tore our family apart. I believe my mom lives right in my heart. I mean, she may not be here physically, but her spirit is here with me. She's guiding me through this process as we speak. You know, she's brought everyone together because I don't want her memory to go away.
Ten years after her mother's death, Harris established the Ruth Boyd Elder Abuse Foundation to provide education and resources to elders and caregivers. She is also preparing to open a bed and breakfast that captures the warmth, loving essence her mother left behind. Big Ma's Place will be a cherished establishment where people can gather and be well.
I think everyone here today, everyone's tragedy, they are all tragedies, they're sadness, but we have all overcame and found a way to persevere. But we're all here to help everybody. There's other stories. There's thousands of stories out there. I mean, there's so many stories. Everyone sitting here has got a story. And the ones who have suffered, or still going through things, or they're not talking to people, they can reach out. They can reach out to anyone here. That's, we're here to help. We're here to support. We're here to persevere, and that's what it's all about, these colorful stories.
The sun is hitting a lot of different people.
I'm so happy that you guys are going to
Pretty excited too.
Can't see her. Yeah, that's right.